any more delay, so I'm gonna begin our lectures today. Well, I understand the fact that this is a double season. One is election season, and then we have the FIFA World Cup season. But I still hope you will pay attention to your study as much as possible. And for your midterms, we schedule for the 23rd of November. Is that right? Yes. Okay. So, as you can see, I announced that information at Smart 3 UMS. You can check the information there, including the list of instruction. And about the topics that you will have to do revision, I think I will write that on our page on Smart 3 MS in the midterm sections. You can check which topics that you're going to do revision. Okay? I think I will do that maybe tonight or this afternoon. Yep. Right. Thank you so much for contributing to the papers. The fact is that we are also lacking papers in the faculty. So for this midterm, I ask you to contribute papers so that they accept the papers for other users. For this one, I will correct it and then I will distribute to you back on the day of midterm so that you can do this, use this paper for your midterm. Yeah? For final exams, of course, you don't have to contribute papers. We will provide the answer sheets. Answer. Okay. Right. We begin by discussing our tutorials exercise here. Remember last time we talked about the standard trade model, and basically we covered the gains from trade, we covered the effect of trade, and also some portions of this protectionism. We talk about subsidy and tariff, if you still remember. Yeah. I hope you still remember the important terms like the terms of trade. Remember what is terms of trade? The export price divided by the import price. Okay? And that also affects our welfare when terms of trade increases or decreases. Now from here, from this exercise, in question 1, it has the implications of protectionism. And we're trying to analyze how this protectionism works. For example, when one country provides subsidy, here, one country provides subsidy, this is basically protectionism. This country tries to promote the local industry in the world market. Right? This is protectionism, to protect local industry by providing subsidy. On the other hand, in response to this approach adopted by that country, the other country here imposed a countervailing tariff. Countervailing tariff here means a tariff that is adopted to offset the effect of subsidies in the other countries. For example, here there are two countries. One country imposing subsidy, the other country is imposing tariff. Why? Because when one country imposes subsidy, that will have effects on the other country. So what will happen is these other countries try to counter effect, try to offset this subsidy effect by using tariff. So from here, we're trying to analyze what is the consequence when these two countries try to protect each other, meaning not protect each other, but protect themselves. Meaning, one country wants to protect itself with subsidy, the other countries want to protect itself with tariff. We want to analyze what is the consequence here. In particular, we're trying to understand what happens to the terms of trade, because the terms of trade, as I said, it has the impact on our welfare. Okay? What about the welfare of two countries following changes in the terms of trade? Right. So remember these questions here. Maybe I can just go to my whiteboard here. Right. Since we have two countries, we're gonna have to use two labels here. Is there any indications? One country and the other country. It doesn't say country A or country B, home or foreign. So I just write here, maybe I write here, this is home. Okay. This is home. Okay? And then I have the other country, this is foreign. Okay. I got to have a problem here with my pen because I just realized that the nib of the pen here becomes so short. It's completely almost worn out. So sometimes it happens something like this. Hopefully you can still write properly. I can't even think of any ideas to take this nib out to replace it because I don't have any tools to pluck it out. Okay. So let's have our what should we put here? Negative price. Let's say we use Px over Py for home, meaning that home export X and import Y, right? And for the quantity here, I use Qx over Qy, the relative quantity of X to Y, right? Okay. So from here, we're going to need very quickly, I draw the relative demand curve and relative supply curve. This is the basic things that you should understand. What do you need in these two graphs in order to perform the analysis? So you understand the fact that you need the relative supply curve, okay, and then the relative demand curve from here. And this is the equilibrium point. I'm going to put here a note just to indicate this is the original relative supply curve. Okay, and I put a note here. And this is a note also. And here the equilibrium point, not the original one. Okay. I also need the same things on the other side. Yes, right here. Okay. Right. this side, please pay attention that because this is foreign, we are considering that there are differences in the comparative advantage between home and foreign. Meaning, home has comparative advantage in producing eggs, meaning country home export eggs. Country foreign here has a comparative advantage in Y, meaning foreigners import good Y. Is that right? Or export good Y? Export good Y, not import. Okay? Therefore, on this side, I should interchange the label here. The label here, this is PY over QX. This is QY over QX. Hope you understand what I'm doing here. What I mean here is actually home specialize in eggs, export eggs, import Y. Okay, that's why I have this ratio. This is the relative price from the perspective of home country. From the perspective of foreign country, foreign because it is a trading partner to country home. Foreign import eggs and export Y. That's why you see the relative price there, PY over QX. Okay, and the quantity QY over QX. Yeah. Now, we are considering the fact here, one country subsidizes its export, right here, okay? One country subsidizes its export. We consider this one as home. Home subsidizes its export here, meaning good X. So what will happen to the relative demand and relative supply curve to home? Based on our lectures last week, you should understand this one. Which curve? Let's talk about the supply curve first. How will that shift the relative supply curve to the left or right? This is something we covered in the lectures last week. Left. Subsidy. This is subsidy. Home provides subsidy to boost the productions of good eggs. Good eggs is the export of country home. Now country home subsidize these productions of eggs. How will that shift the relative supply curve to the left or right? Right increases, left decreases. Right. It will shift to the right side. Okay. Oops, as I mentioned, something wrong in my pen here. Okay, I shift the relative supply curve to the right side, like this one. This is relative. Relative supply curve 1. Okay, and here I have this new equation E1. Will the subsidies affect the relative demand curve also?
Yes.
Yes. How will that affect relative supply, relative demand curve?
Increase.
To the left side.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's justify why it shift to the left side. Because the subsidy actually make good eggs more expensive in the domestic market. That's why the demand for eggs decreases relative to Y. So the relative demand curve will shift to the left side. Okay? Right? Let me draw the graph again. It's going to shift here. Okay. Oops. here we have the new equilibrium point. Right, now this is not finished yet. This is not finished yet. We want to understand how foreigners will respond to the changes here, because the changes in the terms of trade right here will affect the terms of trade in the foreigners. Now, let me tell you one thing. When home subsidizes its export, the export goes to foreigners, right? So a lot of good eggs now comes to foreigners with a lower price, because subsidies will make this firm, will make the industry at home available, means become capable to sell good eggs with relatively cheaper price at foreigners. You see that when eggs arrive in foreigners with cheaper price, this becomes a competition. The competitions to good wine in foreigners. Foreigners export wine, right? Eggs now become cheaper when they arrive foreigners. It becomes a competition to good wine there. What will happen is this will cause a reduce or a reduction in the supply of good wine in foreigners. Because in foreigners, now the firms there believe that it is more profitable to supply eggs, because there are a lot of good eggs in that market now. Okay, so the consequence is the negative supply curve will shift. Something from my friends here. So the negative supply curve for Y decreases. Can you give me 5 minutes, because I'm trying to fix these things on this next just 5 minutes.
This can be dependent. That's
Price of the next steps of the next stage
Okay.
Yang ini PSOBY.
Right, let's continue here. Just now I said when home subsidizes its output with eggs and it becomes more available in the international market, such as the foreign market, this will become a competition to other countries, just like in foreign. When there are so many good eggs come in, they will become a competition to the locally produced good, which is product wine, country foreigners. Okay. If you look at this ratio here, this ratio, now quantity X increases. Why? Because home is more able to supply good eggs to foreigners. See this? Okay. And consequently, when competition increases, the suppliers, the sellers, the producers in foreigners will reduce the supplies of wine due to competition. That is the impact. Okay, the impact. So let me put this way. This is relative supply. One, and we have a new equilibrium right here. Okay. when we shift the relative supply curve in foreign to the left, that means the supply of white in foreign decreases, correct? And you understand that product Y is the main export of foreign. Now the supply increases because of the competition from product X. So can you imagine what will the governments in foreign do to protect the supplies of good Y? They will impose tariff. Okay? Why? Because the problem stated here, the other country imposes a countervailing tariff to offset its effect. Okay? So what we analyze here is actually who try to subsidize its output X, but that creates an effect to foreign. What is the effect? The subsidy here causes the supply of Y in foreign to decrease. That is the consequence. So what will the governments in foreign do is to counter effect, is to do something to offset this effect. And the strategy is to impose tariff. Okay? If you recall what we learned in the past lecture, I believe you still remember how will tariff shift the relative demand and relative supply curve. If foreigners try to impose tariff, the tariff is on good X or Y. In foreign, why? Remember, tariff, yes, it's correct, it's X. Why? Because the export of X here become an import to foreigners. So when foreigners impose tariff, the tariff is supposed to be on good X here. Okay? Now what will happen? So what is the consequence when the governments in foreigners impose tariff on good X? The price of good X will become expensive or cheaper? Expensive in foreigners. And that will have a consequence to the relative demand curve, correct? The relative demand for Y compared to X increases. Is that right? The tariff in foreigners make X more expensive. And people will demand more Y in place of good X that is more expensive. So the relative demand for Y to X increases. That will shift the relative demand curve to the right side. Okay? So I'm gonna shift this one right here. Okay? This is relative demand curve 1. And I have a new equilibrium point right here. I put it E2 here. Okay? Now this is the consequence of tariff. But what is the consequence of tariff on the relative supply? We know the tariff will shift the relative demand curve to the right. So what is the effect on the relative supply curve? Do you think that will shift the relative supply curve to the left or right after the tariff? The import tariff. According to what we discussed last week, the import make Y more expensive, right? As a producer, when we see Y more expensive, we will have these motivations to supply more Y in the country and reduce the supplies of X. Because the higher the price, the more we can make profit, right? The more we can make revenue. So as a producer, as a firm in foreign, when the government impose tax on X, that makes good X more attractive to produce. It makes X more attractive to gain profit, to gain revenue. And consequently, the producer in foreign, they will reduce the supply of Y and increase the supply of X because more firms will try to produce some Y. Although I specialize in Y, for example, in foreign, but when I see the price of X is so attractive, I also try to supply some X. Okay, some firms might even withdraw the supply of Y in order to supply X. And the consequence is the supply of Y decreases, supply of X increases. See this one? So the relative supply of X of Y to X should shift to the left side, right? Okay. So what we have here is I will shift the supply curve here to the left side. This is a new equilibrium, E3. And this is not finished yet, because they are trading partners. They will have action and reaction between these two countries. First of all, home takes a step to subsidize its export, and this step has been responded by foreign by imposing tariff. Remember, because this is the trading partners, when foreigners impose tariff, that will have consequence on home also. See this? From homes to foreign, from foreigners to home. There are repercussions of effects between these two countries. Okay? Now, what is the effects on home after foreigners adopt the approach to impose tariff? The tariff here you see, this is the final point. This is the initial point. This is the relative price of Y to price X naught, and this is the relative price of Y to price X. This is 3. The relative price in foreign increases. What is that value again? This value, okay, Py over Px. What is this again? The terms of trade. The terms of trade. So the terms of trade is the export price divided by the import price, right? Okay. So when you see in foreign, the terms of trade increases. Terms of trade increases. This is the first question we answered right here. The statement here asks what happens to the terms of trade. In foreign, we understand the terms of trade increases. And I said in the past lecture, an increase in the terms of trade is good or bad to the welfare. It's good to the welfare. Okay? So you can answer the questions right here. What happens to the terms of trade? In foreign, it improves, increases. And for the welfare in foreign, it also improves. Okay? But what about home? Let's see. Let's see here. This is our initial relative price X to again from, oh my gosh. Y. This is original one. Okay. And we want to find the latest, the final relative price after this trade war. We can consider this one as trade war. Why not? Because one country subsidizes, the other countries respond by providing tariff. Okay? So this is the initial relative price. This is the terms of trade for home. We want to know what is the last one, the final relative price, in order to conclude whether the terms of trade increase or decrease, and whether the welfare increase or decrease. Yeah? That is the last question we cannot answer here. But as I said, the tariff adopted by foreigners will have impact on home. That is something. This is the last thing you're gonna know. Okay. So you see this. This actually make the import tariff here actually makes X relatively more expensive at home also. You see this? X is an imported good to foreign, but the tariff made good X in foreign more expensive. And relatively, that also make what to say, good wine become relatively cheaper at home. Sorry, yeah, then relatively cheaper at home, and eggs relatively more expensive at home. So the consequence is the relative demand curve will shift further down, further to the left side. Let's say right here. Okay. Relative demand curve 2. So we have here E3. And this is our latest, our final relative price at home. The relative price decreases. What is the conclusion here? The terms of trade decreases, and is this good or bad to the welfare in foreign, like in home?
Bad.
It's bad. It's bad. Okay? So we have answered these two questions here. What happens to the terms of trade, and also what about the welfare in the two countries? Now, this is quite interesting. Basically, you can see the one who takes the first step to protect itself becomes worse off. Home is the first one that takes action. It takes this subsidy approach. But in the end, home expects to realize a protectionism to its local sellers of good eggs. But at the end of the day, what happens is the cities, in terms of trade, decreases when foreigners try to counter home's approach to protect itself by adopting import tariff. So sometimes we can also link this one to coordinations of international policies. Remember, this is one of our 7 themes, correct? Coordinations of international policy. You remember? One of our 7 themes. So when the two countries do not coordinate well in terms of policy, this can happen. You provide subsidy, I respond to you by providing tariff. And consequently, the home countries, the one who subsidizes its output, will feel the worst off, will become worse off. Yeah? But in the case when coordinations of international policies is good, is well constructed, these two countries will understand each other. They won't have this like effect and counter effect between each other. And there is a good coordination of policies. Yeah? We call this also sometimes conflict. Not political conflicts, not like a war conflict, but this is an economic conflict. When the two countries do not coordinate well in terms of international trade, this can happen. Yeah. Right. We look at the second questions here. Countries A and B have different cost of productions, capital, and labor, with which they produce two goods, X and Y. Technology is the same in the two countries. X is, this one is important because we're going to use this one in our analysis. Good X is capital intensive and A is capital abundant. We have two countries here, A and B, and we understand X is capital intensive and A is country A is capital abundant. Yeah. So based on here, analyze the effects of terms of trade and the welfare of the two countries following the 4 cases here. So we are given 4 scenarios. For example, the first one, an increase in A's capital stock. What is the consequence in terms of trade, in terms of welfare, right? Now, to answer this question, I think we better use a table. Okay. We're going to use a table. Like this. We have 4 scenarios. Okay. Can't control the hands. That. We have 4 scenarios. We need to analyze trade in terms of trade and welfare for the two countries, and we have maybe I have to put here 5 columns. Okay. The reasons I construct this table because we have 4 scenarios. The first one is A, for country A, capital stock increases, and B, for country A, also labor supply increases. So what I'm going to write here is maybe I just write this is K, this is L, this is K, this is L. Okay. These 2 rows this is for country A. This is for country B. And then we need to analyze the terms of trade, TOT. And then we need to understand the welfare is TOT. And then welfare. This is A, this is B. This is C, this is D. Okay? This is for country A. This is for country B. Okay. So for every scenario here, the resources increases. For example, A, capital increases, B, L increases, labor increases. And for C, comes to country B, K increases, and D, L increases, or labor increases. Now, just now we understand from the statement, K is what intensive? What is capital intensive? X is
Capital intensive.
And country A is abundant in K. Yeah. From here, we need to understand one thing. You can do this analysis. I mean, you can complete this analysis by simply drafting some graph. For example, let me show you. can drafting some draft like this one. Okay. So just for a quick analysis, I will skip some of the information here. I just draw straight away the relative demand curve, and then I have the relative supply curve. This is relative supply, relative demand curve, like this. This is our initial point. Now, to understand, to answer the questions here, an increase in A capital stock, we understand X is capital intensive, and we also understand because A is capital abundant, so country A should specialize good X or export good X. Okay, so in this situation, we have here this is quantity X over quantity Y. This is the relative price of X to Y, like this. Now, because X is capital intensive, and in scenario 1, the numbers for the quantity of capital increases. What is the consequence in this situation? Will that affect the relative supply or relative demand? The supply curve. Why? Because this country export X, right? So when capital increases, it will add more abilities to the countries to increase the supply of X relative to Y. So the consequence is the relative supply curve will shift to the right side, like this. So we have here RFSC1, okay? Like this. So from here, can you tell me what happens to the terms of trade? In this new equilibrium E1, what happens? What is the impact on the relative price? Decreases or increases? Decreases. So can we say the terms of trade decreases or increases? Decreases also, right? Okay. So come back to our table right here. We can say that the terms of trade here decreases. In XA, please don't write the arrow like this one. I just try to be quick, so I just use an arrow. It decreases, okay? But what about welfare? Welfare, you might say decreases, but in fact, this is uncertain. Why? Because if we look back to this one, now from here, we understand that the terms of trade decreases. But at the same time, because this country export X, the supply curve shift to the right side, meaning that it has the increase in capital has enables these countries to increase the export to other countries. So there are some sort of uncertainty here because the decrease in the terms of trade can be offset by the increase in export to other countries. It depends on which side is heavier, which side is stronger. The decrease in the terms of trade stronger, or the increase in the supply or export stronger. If the decrease in the terms of trade is stronger than export, then the welfare increases. But if the country is able to increase a lot of export to other countries, relative to the decrease in the terms of trade, that means the revenue generated from the increase in export is able to offset the decrease in the terms of trade. Right? That's clear. So in these situations, we can only say this is uncertain, the welfare. Yeah. For country B, usually when two countries are trading partners, one country's decrease in the terms of trade will be the opposite happens to the trading partners. In this case, when the terms of trade decreases in country A, it will be increased in country B. Okay? And the increase in the terms of trade in country B will be accompanied by the increase in welfare also. This is the situation, right? Now, I'm gonna analyze one more, scenario B, and I will leave it to you to analyze C and D. L, labor. Labor is not abundant in country A, correct? And labor is also not the main resources to produce X. So what will happen when L increases? Let's say here, right here. Okay. Now we understand the fact that L is used to produce what? Y. So when the quantity of Y increases, these countries will reduce the supply of X and increase the supply of Y, meaning that the relative supply of X to Y increases. The consequence is the relative supply curve will shift to the left side, in this case. Yeah? The relative supply curve shift to the left side. We just this is relative supply curve. Shift to the left side, and you can see here what happens to the terms of trade. It increases. So from here we can say that the terms of trade increases when the quantity of labor increases in country A. And because labor is not abundant in country A, and it is not also the resources that country A will use to produce its main export, which is X. Okay, so in this case, it doesn't affect so much our export. And when the terms of trade increases, this is certain that the welfare will increase. Right? The welfare increase. And on the other side, in country B, the increase in the terms of trade and welfare is opposite. Meaning, the terms of trade in country B decreases and the welfare also decreases. In this case. Right? Now, I have analyzed two scenarios here. I want you to try these two other scenarios. Yeah. Maybe this could be one of the exam questions, so I don't know. Maybe it's in the midterms or maybe it's in finals. Like this. If you're not certain in the explanations here, you're welcome to see me or just ask me questions through emails. I will answer you. Okay. Right, I think we have done the tutorial exercise here. Okay. We take a rest for 10 minutes. We come back at 10 past 11. Yeah. Next topic. Yes. This is week. Which week is this?
5.
5. So next week is our midterm, right? Week 6. Okay. Now today we're going to talk about economies of scale, imperfect competition, and trade. Economies of scale is something that we have learned already from microeconomics and perhaps macroeconomics. What does it mean by economies of scale? As the word implies here, scale. right here. This has the implications of size, the economies of size. So the question is, does the size of production matter in international trade? This is perhaps the questions you should ask and you should remember this, because end of these lectures, you will have to answer this question. Okay? Does the size of productions matter in international trade? Right. Economy scale here, as I said before, it implies size. So we want to think about if our capacities of production increases, does it impact international trade? The size itself, it can mean two things. One is the size of a firm. How do you measure the size of a firm? How do you measure? Let's say you open a company. How do you measure your size? Profit. Profit could be what? Other measures? Property could be others. Income is like profit. What about the number of employees you recruit? There could be one measure of the firm size. For example, if you look at some companies, it has some information, how many employees in this company, 50 employees. Some of them have 100 employees, and some companies even have more than 1 million employees. They are international companies. Okay, so those are big size companies. When you think to a company, how many employees you have? You said I have 8 employees. That's quite small business actually. Yeah. That is one meaning of size. You can also think about size as the number of firms in one industry. For example, just consider inside Malaysia, you consider McDonald's. How many McDonald's in Malaysia? What you see is just McDonald's. Okay, you can also consider fast food companies, including KFC, including McDonald's, and what others? I don't know, Burger King. Okay, let's consider these 3 fast food companies. If we just look at inside Malaysia, we are just looking at the size of Malaysia, fast food industry in Malaysia. Okay, that is one size. Now, let's expand your scope to include Asian countries. How many ASEAN countries here? I'm not talking about Asian, ASEAN. Yeah, how many countries in ASEAN? 10. Yeah, your topic is ASEAN, right? Yeah. Okay, 10 countries. If you just consider 10 countries in ASEAN, you consider all fast food companies in these 10 ASEAN countries. Which one is biggest? Inside Malaysia only, or Asian ASEAN countries? ASEAN is a region, right? It's a region. If you consider the fast food industry in ASEAN, certainly this is a bigger market, a much bigger market compared to if you just consider one country like Malaysia, or Vietnam, or Thailand, for example. Yeah, it's much bigger. That is the second meaning of size. One is we look at the size of one firm. The second one is we look at the number of firms in the industry itself. There is 2 meaning here. Okay? So we are considering here economies of scale. We are actually asking the question: does size matter in international trade? Let's say a country is initially a closed economy. Can you give me one example of countries that is closed, or maybe almost closed? Closed economies mean these countries has very little to no interactions with the other world, the outside world. Any example? North Korea. North Korea is one example. Okay, if we just consider North Korea itself, that is the sign you see. What about if North Korea opens up its economies to international trade? It will become a bigger market, right? So we are trying to ask the question, does that matter? What is the impact on that economy? Yep, this is the economies scale. Right. The other one is imperfect competition, which is the market structures that we have learned before. Remember, in microeconomics, we have learned 4 structures. We have perfect competition, we have imperfect competition, or monopolistic here, and we also consider monopoly. Still remember monopoly? And then we have oligopoly. Here we consider imperfect competition because economies of scale seems to be more appropriately analyzed under imperfect competition. Why? Because perfect competition seems to be too extreme, meaning that under perfect competition, we understand that every firm produces the same products, homogeneous product. One important characteristic under perfect competition is one. And we also assume there's only one price in the market, which is under fair competition. It seems to be unrealistic to analyze economy of scale for international economies because there are a varieties of prices in the markets. Yeah. So we're gonna analyze economies of scale under imperfect competitions here, right? In this lecture. Remember, the questions that you're gonna ask here is: does size matter? Does size of production matter in international trade? Okay. And perhaps the second questions you can ask, you can remember, is that does imperfect competition involve protectionism, and how? Okay. So from the 7 themes of international economics, we will still cover the first 3: the gains from trade, the pattern of trade, and also protectionism. Right? Let's go for our quick info here. What do you call this ship? Cruise. Okay, cruise. You remember in the first lectures, we used this cargo vessel, the cargo ship. How do you remember? How do we measure cargo ship, the size? Do you remember? The capacities. I mean, how many containers the cargo ship can contain? That's how we measure. Do you remember some TEU? 20 equivalent unit. 23 equivalent unit of containers. How many containers a cargo ship can contain? That's how we measure cargo ship. But for cruise ship here, cruise, we use a different way. We don't use capacity anymore. I mean, because cruise ship contains, it used to carry people, carry tourists, not containers. This way, okay? So how do we measure the volume? I mean, the size of this vessel. Okay, so what we present here is the symphonies of the seas. Symphonies of the sea, which is known as the largest cruise ship by gross tonnage. So if you look at that word, gross tonnage means a measurement of the volumes of the ship. It actually measures the size of the cruise. Compared to cargo ship, we use capacities of containers. For cruise ship, we use gross tonnage. Gross tonnage means the volumes, I mean how many things that this ship can carry. We cannot use the number of rooms in these cruise ships to measure its size, no. Because other than the guest rooms, like hotel rooms, okay, this cruise ship also has other space, like restaurants, It has a restaurant inside there. It